I'm not a lawyer, but let me tell you what happened on day 24 of the Diddy trial. So the day kicked off with the judge making his ruling regarding juror number 6. And if you recall, last week the location of where that juror actually lives became an issue because during voir dire, he said he lived in the Bronx with his fiancée and his daughter. And then when the judge and attorney questioned him last week, he said he recently moved to New Jersey to live with his girlfriend and his daughter. And then he later told the judge and the attorneys that he stays in the Bronx about 4 to 5 nights a week with his aunt. So after all of this came out, the judge said he would take the weekend to make a decision on if this juror would stay on the jury panel or if he would be dismissed. And then late Sunday night, Diddy's defense team filed a motion vigorously opposing the removal of this juror and saying that if the juror is dismissed, then they would like a mistrial because this is just the prosecution's attempt to remove a black male from the jury. After hearing these arguments, the judge denied both of the defense's requests, meaning the juror was still removed and there is no mistrial. And in making his ruling, the judge cited something Diddy's defense attorney, Xavier Donaldson, said last week, which was, quote, "I have had a lot of trials in this district, particularly with some people in this group and other persons. And this is the first time I can say in 25 years we have this type of diverse jury in this district. It hasn't happened in my 25 to 30 years practicing. I think we are moving in the right direction." But Donaldson went on to say, quote, "For whatever reason, the process that this court used for us to get a jury worked, and it worked wonderfully, in that we got a diverse jury. But the result of what's going to happen if we take this juror off on this record, the result is, in my opinion, going backward." So while this attorney was praising how diverse the current jury is, his concern was that if juror number 6 is removed, the replacement for him was going to lessen the diversity on this jury panel. And for context, juror number 6, the one being removed, is a 41-year-old black man who lives with his fiancée or girlfriend or aunt and his child. He works as a clerk at a correctional facility and he is a fan of 90s hip hop. He's pled guilty to misdemeanor fraud related to insurance and received a 1-year conditional discharge. And now the alternate replacing him is a 57-year-old white man who lives with his wife and 2 kids in Westchester County. He has a master's degree in mechanical engineering and works as a manufacturing architect. So that's what the argument was, but at the end of the day, juror number 6 was dismissed and the replacement is in. There was also apparently some other issue with a separate juror, but the judge indicated he would deal with that at the end of the day and the conversation would be sealed, so we the public have no idea what that one's about. Now on to the witnesses. There were 2 witnesses for day 24 and they were both summary witnesses, or basically people who get called to get a bunch of information into evidence. In this case, the 2 witnesses are government employees and they reviewed text messages, call logs, hotel records, flight records, audio files, videos, and images all related to this case and are being called to testify and summarize what they reviewed in a way that makes sense but also doesn't take forever. So the first summary witness was a paralegal specialist from the U.S. Attorney's Office named Ananya Sanker. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And she reads messages that seem to be the government trying to further prove their RICO charge against Diddy, which again is that Diddy used his staff to commit crimes with the goal of benefiting him and his enterprise. So the government has the witness read a text from March of 2016 in which KK is telling staff make sure that a hotel room is stocked with Gatorade, water, and chicken noodle soup. And then another text message in which KK, Diddy, and one of Diddy's assistants are all discussing getting $4,000 in cash to a hotel that Diddy is at. They read other text messages that have to do with narcotics and Diddy's staff, and in one, it's Diddy's head of security getting approval to pay a man named Guido for thousands of dollars of narcotics. And then there's another text in which KK is asking Diddy what he needs the head of security to pick up for him, to which Diddy replies, 15 pills of Holly. They switch gears and read some texts about violence. One in particular is from 2017, in which Cassie texts KK, WTF. KK responds, "Are you okay?" And then Cassie says, "No, but you should talk to him. No one deserves to be dragged by their hair. I locked the door for my safety." The government also reads a text that involves a former personal assistant of Diddy's named Brendan Paul. And if you recall, the day Diddy's homes were being raided, the feds also pulled up to the airport where Diddy and his family were preparing to head out on a family trip. When the feds got there, they ended up arresting one of Diddy's assistants, and that assistant was Brendan Paul. Brendan Paul is also on the government's witness list, and he's expected to be called very soon. So in this text message, KK tells Brendan, quote, he might need king stuff potentially. Brendan responds, he's just going with the flow. And then KK replies, okay, so he's basically lit. Brendan then says, isn't lit? And then responds a little while later saying, quote, PD active now, running to Walmart now. KK says, quote, Wild King mode active or Gucci bag active. And then Paul says, quote, in between the two, if that makes sense. From there, Diddy's defense attorney, Tinny Garagos, gets up to do cross-examination, and her cross seems pretty short, but she uses it to highlight text messages that seem to support the defense's claim that Jane was a willing participant in hotel nights. She reads off one text from Valentine's Day of 2022 when Jane told Christina Coram, quote, I'm excited to surprise him meaning Diddy. And then she later sent Christina a picture of a hotel room decorated with rose petals and balloons. And then they read off another text in which KK asked Jane twice to call her because Diddy was trying to figure out plans. But Jane replies to her, quote, my answer to him is no and is still no. And of course, this is the defense trying to show that Jane had the ability to and would actively resist making plans with Diddy when she didn't want to. Another set of texts that are read by the defense is between KK and Diddy himself, and this thread is from November of 2023, so around the time of Cassie's lawsuit, and in it, KK tells Diddy, quote, if you cannot be honest with me, this doesn't work. We all know what your kryptonite is and where you don't make the best choices. KK goes on to tell him she felt like he was lying to her and it wasn't sitting well with her, and then Diddy replies, quote, come take my phone. KK tells him it's not about his phone and then tells him if he's starting to lie to her, that would break her. And with that, Sanker is released from the stand and then the next witness is called. The second witness is a special agent from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and she mainly testifies about travel and hotel records. And context here is it seems the government is trying to show that these travel and hotel records were really for freak-offs, and yet Diddy used his business and business accounts to pay for them, which again is prosecutors trying to support their RICO charge. So the government begins by discussing hotel and flight charges from December of 2009, which they say were for Cassie and an entertainer named Jules, and these charges were paid for with Diddy's American Express card. The next set of charges are from October 2012, and it was for a flight Cassie took from LA to New York on October 10, 2012. The invoice for this flight was sent to Bad Boy Entertainment, and prosecutors are claiming that this trip was for Diddy and Cassie to have a freak-off. They show a text from 3 days after Cassie arrived, so October 13, 2012, and in this text, Diddy says, quote, you ready for tonight? Cassie responds, yes, but need to get something. And then prosecutors show more messages from around this time in which Cassie sent two men time, location, and reservation information for the hotel and when to meet up. Prosecutors also showed freak-off videos that were recorded on October 14th, as well as an invoice for another room that was booked under the name Frank Black, and prosecutors say was used for one of the men to stay in. So again, I'm not going to go through all of the records, but that was the feel for the testimony of this second witness. The witness is not done yet. They haven't gotten to cross-examination, so she will be back tomorrow. And then prosecutors say they have 3 more witnesses after this one is done. And then it'll be time for the defense.